Today I'm doing a channel on how can I increase my intuition. Now you see that the above and below here I'm using different colors. I'm doing some courses on using Instagram, and this is just one of the things I'm going to try. I'm going to have a row of yellow and then a row of purple, a row of yellow, a row of purple, like that. So that's why I'm yellow today, and you can see it's yellow around me. Okay, alright, that aside, the reason I'm doing this today about how can I increase my intuition is because you may have heard me from a previous channel I spoke about in the sort of the prologue. I spoke about how I had lent someone money and then it worked out that it looks like they were lying and they basically have stolen the money from me. And leading up to me lending the money, I had this nagging feeling that they were being inauthentic with me. And obviously that was my intuitive sense, and I ignored it. I wanted to believe them. And I ignored my intuitive sense, and it's turning out now that I was correct to feel the way that I did. So I thought it's an interesting topic. How can you increase your intuitive sense? How can I increase my intuition? So that's what I'm going to channel on today. How can I increase my intuition? Alrighty, are we ready? Let's have a guzzle. Hydrate the antenna. Okay, so how can I increase my intuition? That's what we got. Greetings and thank you for the question. How can I increase my intuition? Let us start by saying that your intuition is always present, because it is a quality of the higher self. It is part of the higher self's knowing. And as you are the higher self being, having the physical experience, your intuition is always present because it is inherent to who you truly are. So being aware of your intuition is not a matter of creating it, but instead having the capacity to discern it from the rest of the internal noise which you have. So if you wish to increase your intuitive capacities, then it is a matter of increasing your discernment. And your discernment is clarified when there is less competing input. There is less confusion internally with the pollution of false belief, which becomes mixed in with the intuitive sense, with this authentic knowing, such that the authentic knowing is lost and it becomes disguised. And then when you look at the selection of beliefs or of assumptions you can make, rather than this intuitive knowing being a beacon standing out as the obvious thing, which is the truth of the moment, there is an array of choices for you to select from, and none of them stand out more than any other, and so you don't know which one is the true intuitive sense and which ones are just internal noise resulting from an inauthentic state or a belief in false understanding of self. So to clarify this internal environment is to quiet the internal environment, so that the internal environment is an environment of stillness, meaning that there is much less mental activity. And instead it is more like a blank screen. And when something is projected onto that screen, it can be seen clearly, because it is not being occluded by the falsities of the belief structures which give rise to this hyper mentality where there is overthinking, there is too much activity. You are not the mind. You are the higher self energetic. And so the mind, the body, the personality, these are temporary assets which you have manifested from the higher self dream, such that you can integrate into physicality and have the physical experience for the purpose of knowing thyself, which is a fulfillment by proxy of the one's purpose, which is to know itself through experience. Because you are a perspective of the one. It's experiencing itself through you. So, in a way, you are wearing the mind, the body, the personality. A metaphor is like the Iron Man suit. So, in a way, you are the occupant, the driver of the Iron Man suit. So, the Iron Man suit and its inherent AI, the computer system, is analogous to this apparatus that you have, that you're manifesting the higher self, so you can integrate into 3D reality. So your body is like the suit, and your mind is like the onboard AI, the organic artificial intelligence. So in a state of full realization and self-mastery, the mind is a tool. It is not the ultimate decider of the way that you live. It isn't the identity of who you truly are. Its true role is as servant to the higher self, as facilitator and assistant of the higher self's desires. So as the higher self, you have the desire to become fully realized in the physical experience as the awakened master, such that the one through you is fully realized in the physical experience and knows itself experientially. This is the process of unfoldment of the awakening of the one through experience across all existence, not unique to you, but as the universal way it is. So as you become more realized that you are the higher self, and there begins to be a division between this realization you are the higher self and the understanding that the mind, the body, the personality isn't who you truly are, but is instead a collection of assets which you are utilizing temporarily in this brief lifetime to fulfill this ultimate purpose, the divine purpose for the one to know itself, and you being the proxy for that. So when you become increasingly awakened to this reality and increasingly skilled at using the mind as a tool, then there is less mind noise, because the mind is only activated when called upon. So the mind isn't elevated in reverence, such that it perceives itself as the top of the hierarchy, as the ultimate authority regarding how you are, how you will be, how you will live. And therefore, when it is subjugated and removed from this false position of authority, then it is less active. It is not thinking incessantly. It is not out of control. You will not find yourself in moments where you think non-stop, even when you don't want to be thinking anymore. You wish it would stop, but it can't. You can't sleep at night because your thoughts keep you awake. This problem of not being in control of your thoughts running rampant, of you having problems sleeping because the thoughts are incessant and the thoughts that you're having are disturbing. This is a result of over-identification with the mind. It is believing that you are the mind. It is believing that you are this apparatus. This is your inauthenticity, and this is your suffering. And your journey is the transition from this state of believing you are the apparatus to the awakened state of realizing that you are the higher self, the eternal, immortal, infinite, energetic, the individuation of the love of the One. So if you wish to have a greater intuitive sense, then the internal environment must be stillness, so that when the wisdom arises, it is easily discerned and recognized, because the internal environment is stillness. So if you struggle with incessant mind activity, then it is time and it is pertinent for you to begin this transition and this shift in self-conceptualization from being the mind, the body, the personality to the greater truth, which is you are the infinite energetic. You are the eternal being that existed before this lifetime began, continues to exist now, although you are in a state of forgetfulness, and will continue to exist after this lifetime ends. This is who you truly are, not the mind, the body, personality. And so as you go about this process of realization and shedding this self-conceptualization of who you are, this apparatus, you will have the increasing capacity to be accurately intuitive. So this process, this awakening process, one of the most effective ways to do this is to spend time in meditation. Become a regular meditator. Because to be aware of your true presence, of your true essence, requires that you are in a state of mind stillness. Because you exist between your thoughts. When you are thinking, this is mental activity. It is activity of the organic artificial intelligence, the inherent operating system that has come with the body. But it is not you in the true essence of who you are. So when you are thinking, this is activity of the operating system. It is not activity of the true essence of who you are. And so the way that mind activity should occur is that as the higher self-awareness, you are able to provide the AI with a direction, with a sense of your higher self-desire. And then the mind kicks into action to facilitate this desire. And then when it is no longer required, the mind goes back into silence, back into low activity. So for you to have an increasing capacity to do this, it's important that you have a awareness of the true presence of who you are. So you need to practice mind stillness. When you go into a state of mind stillness where you descend into relaxation, and you relax to the point where the mind becomes less and less active, until eventually the mind is silent, it is blank. But you still have the awareness that you are there, that you are still present, even though the mind is silent. If you are the mind, then when the mind is completely silent, how can you continue to be aware of self if there is no mind activity? The reason that you continue to be aware of self in a state of mind stillness is because this is the appreciation of the true essence of who you are. You are the presence that is still there when the mind is silent. This is who you truly are. And so the importance of meditation is to become increasingly familiar with this true aspect of self, the presence which is always there and is the only thing that is there when the mind is still. And in this state of mind stillness, where the mind activity is low, then you can begin to utilize the mind as a tool. And so the mind can become active, not to think on its own and rampantly go off on tangents out of control, but to facilitate the desires of the higher self, of the true presence of who you are. So in this state of mind stillness, where the mind is silent and you have the sense that you are still there, which is an awareness of your higher self, an awareness of your true essence, an awareness of the energetic, which is temporarily occupying this device during this brief lifetime. Then a useful exercise we suggest is to use your imagination to increase your awareness of the true essence of who you are. Because you are not the finite being, vulnerable, limited, but instead you are the infinite being. And we say infinite in a very real way. You literally are an infinite being. You do not have boundaries. There are no borders to who you truly are. Because it is all an integration into the one thing. Because there is only one thing, and this one thing is infinite. And you are integrated into it. You are it. You are a perspective of the one thing. You are the one thing. And so as such, you are an infinite being. And so a useful exercise is to have a deep contemplation of your infinity. So the exercise is to imagine, while in a meditative state, mind is silent, engage the mind as a tool and imagine yourself expanding more and more and more, as big as the room, as big as your town, as big as your state, as big as your country, as big as the globe, as big as the solar system, as big as the galaxy, as big as all galaxies, as big as the greatest reaches you can imagine, and accelerating in expansion at an infinite speed. This contemplation of your infinity begins to create a separation in self, where when you are the infinite being and you start to have more of a self-conceptualization as the infinite being, you begin to perceive yourself more as the infinite being and less as this finite being, then it begins to create a separation in your identity, and you begin to perceive the apparatus, the mind, the body, the personality, as tools, as temporary assets, which are not actually you, but are just something that you have manifested from the higher self dream, so you can integrate into 3D reality for fulfilling the divine purpose. And this separation, as you begin to perceive the apparatus in this way, then you start looking back at the apparatus from the perspective of the higher self, the true essence of who you are, the infinite energetic. And when you begin to look back in this way, and you start creating this division, you become less caught up in the activity of the mind, the body, the personality. You are less invested in it. You are less consumed by the tribulations and the machinations of the life being lived by this temporary apparatus. And this increases the ease with which you can have less mind activity, because you understand this is just temporary. This is just something you have for this brief lifetime. And the true essence of who you are is the energetic. And the energetic is an infinite being, an invulnerable being, dreaming this conduit, dreaming the life that you live, and as such is untouchable by what happens in the dream. Just as you wake in the morning after a night's rest with a sigh of relief that everything that occurred in your dream wasn't real, because it can't touch you. Similarly, what is occurring in the life that you live is part of the dream, and the true essence of who you are cannot be touched by what is occurring in the dream. And again, this understanding, this realization, adds to the diminishment of mind activity, the increasing stillness within. To clarify the internal environment, so there is less competing noise with your intuition. And as you become more and more realized as this higher self being, and more recognize that you are not the apparatus, but you are instead this infinite energetic, which isn't contained within the body, but instead the body is contained within it, because it is part of the dream. The body, the life you live, are part of the dream that you are having from the higher self perspective, so it is all contained within the higher self. It is the one thing. It is the one dream. So you and your life are the one thing, the one dream contained within the higher self. It is your manifestation. And as you are an infinite being, you extend far beyond this illusory dream of this apparatus in the life that you live. And so your center does not have to be over the body. This is not your center. Your center is where you choose it to be, because you are an infinite being, and as an infinite being there is no point from a geographical sense which is equidistant from your borders, because you have no borders. You extend to infinity. And so there is no point which is equidistant from everywhere, or you could say every point is equidistant from all of your borders. So your centre is not over the body, and it is not a place which is determined by the borders, but instead it is a place of your volition. Your centre is where you choose it to be, and nowhere else. Because there is no geographical centre. There is only choice. There is only free will. This is part of the ultimate freedom of existence, is that your centre, your state of beingness, how you choose to be, is entirely up to you, because there is no mathematical, no physics implied place where your centre must be. It is entirely up to you. So if you hold your centre over the body, then you will be entrenched, embedded into the tribulations and the worries and the suffering of the body and the life that it is living. However, this is not necessary. You can place your centre wherever you want it to be. So, we suggest place your centre in your infinity, in this expanded understanding of self, where you are not this limited, temporary, weak, feeble, vulnerable being, physicality, but instead you are the infinite, immortal individuation of the love of the one, the invulnerable being. Place your centre over this. And then, what is occurring in the conduit, what is occurring in the life that is manifested from the high self-dream, becomes less important, less tragic, less insufferable. And again, this increasingly stills the mind, decreases the internal noise. And so you can, with greater accuracy, discern the intuitive knowing within, because there is less competition from a over-engagement of the mind, of a over-identification with the apparatus and the life that is being lived. And in this state of peaceful clarity, you will become, which would appear to others to have an intuitive sense which is profound, that you seem to know things which other people cannot. You can meet a person and know with a great degree of accuracy the intimate machinations of their personality. You can see it, you can perceive it, because that sense is there. It is always there for every human, because it is part of the design. However, what would make you unique is your internal clarity will make it easy for you to discern this intuition. Also, what is occurring across the human field is this unification into the single being. This realization that you are, yes, the individual, but you are also a cell of the humanity being, just as a neuron is a cell of a brain. Individual cells, but together uniting to combine and create the brain. This is occurring across the humanity field, and the humanity being is awakening. And as you become further integrated and further awakened to this unification, this integration that you are part of the humanity being, this also will increase your intuitive sense. Because as you become more unified and integrated into the humanity being, and you start recognizing those around you less as separate from you and more as part of you, different perspectives of the same thing, both of you are the humanity being experiencing itself through the perspective which is you, through the perspective which is them. You are the same being. You are cells of the same organism. And as such, as this begins to increasingly occur, one of the effects of this will be that you will have capacities of insight, capacities which are extrasensory in nature, which are drawn not from you, the individual, any longer, but are now drawn from the larger being. So you will have the capacity to have a profound intuition, a profound insight, a profound wisdom, because these will be coming not just from you, the individual, but this will be coming from the whole, because the whole will be larger than the sum of the parts. And so, to further increase your capacity to be intuitive with a high degree of accuracy, so much accuracy that others perceive it as a profound gift, and then become more awakened to your unification with all other humans. View all humans as a different perspective of you, and understand that all of you, unified, integrated, are the humanity being. And this is done through holding a love field which includes all of humanity, regardless of whether they are good or bad. It does not matter. From the higher self perspective, everybody is fully realised that they are an individuation of the infinite love of the One, and their purpose is the One's purpose, and so they choose the life that they live because they know that it is the perfect scenario for them to awaken to who they are, which is awakening to the realisation they are the higher self, and by proxy they are the infinite One. And so they have chosen to live the life which is destructive to humanity, or which is evil, which is bad, because that is the highest service they can offer for this ultimate goal of awakening the One. And so even though in the human field they appear to be beings unworthy of your love and respect and empathy, however, they are on the stage of 3D, realising that it's just illusory. This is from their higher self-knowing, and they play their role such that it facilitates the awakening of everyone, including you. So it is with great love, from the level of understanding where they are aware of who they are, that they choose to come and play a role which is evil. So extend your love field to include them also, to include all human beings. Have deep and rich love for every human being. And this awakens the circuitry which integrates all of the human field into the single being, awakening the humanity being, because you are fully integrated. There is so much circuitry, infinite circuitry, connecting you all, integrating you all into the one thing across all existence. But as humanity steps into this greater awakening, greater realization, the next big step is this awakening of the humanity being and realizing that you're all part of the one organism, the humanity being. And there's an infinite circuitry connecting all humans. And that circuitry is activated and awakened through love. So awaken the humanity being. Become part of this unified organism, which you can see is beginning to occur in the human field for the earth human. And this will further increase your capacity for intuitive knowing. Because as you become part of the larger being, you shall have the capacity to draw on the larger being for your intelligence, for your creativity, for your wisdom, for your intuitive knowing. And this is why the future for humanity is so golden, because the humanity being is beginning to unify and is beginning to awaken and is beginning to realize that it is a single being which is made up of all of humanity. It is beginning to occur. And these systems of control, these inequitable methods that power and wealth and so on has been controlled and distributed across the earth field, will begin to change and transform and become something which is more representative of the humanity being. Because the humanity being is awakening and realizing, I am not a being which has within itself systems which are good for few but unfair and impoverishing to the many. This is not who I am. And so it is purging these systems. And that's why there appears to be so much turbulence across the human field now. Because it is this awakening of the giant, awakening of the humanity being, and its purging of what it is not, such that what it is can begin to take form. Lastly, if you wish to grow your intuitive sense, then this also necessitates self-trust. That when you have the intuitive sensation, when you have a feeling that something isn't the way it is, or isn't the way it appears to be, then begin trusting this sense. Begin believing that it is a very real capacity you have as a human being. If you are in a state of increasing wakefulness and you are able to hold an energetic field around self which is nothing but love for all aspects of humanity, regardless of how they behave in the life they are living. If you are able to do these, and you can shift your center away from the apparatus so that you become more realized of the infinite energetic, then you are in a state which is conducive to having clarified intuition at your beck and call, ready to be utilized. So begin to trust that. Start experimentally. And when you have this gut feeling regarding something, if it is not a large matter, then go with the gut feeling, with the intuitive sense, and see how it turns out. And if you are able to have the internal stillness such that your discernment of intuition is pronounced, then you will discover that you have a gift of knowing, which of course has always been there, but now your capacity to utilize it has been enhanced. And then through increasingly larger decisions and more, you can begin to rely on your intuitive sense. And again, this will contribute to a quietening of the mind, because as the intuitive sense becomes more, then the requirement of the mind to endlessly churn over information to try and discern what is the truth, what is the best course of action, will become less and less and less required. And you will become more and more an intuitive being. And this is also, very literally, a shift from identification with this temporary apparatus and shift towards an identification with the true essence of who you are, which is it's a realization. It's the revelation of who you truly are. And on it will increase, and more you will become the awakened master, transitioning from a state of deep inauthenticity, where you believed yourself to be the mind, which was thinking out of control, did not give you peace. You had no sense of stillness, and therefore no awareness of your presence. From there, moving to being a being of much reduced mind activity, of much more time spent in stillness, of having the capacity to be intuitive and to trust that. And in every moment, be more and more free to be the true self, the energetic, which has love for all aspects of humanity, regardless of how they behave. This is the authentic state. This is reflective of increasing mastery, to become the awakened being in the physical experience, the lucid dreamer fully realized. Thank you. We love you, and we appreciate that you continue this journey for awakening self, such that you may fulfill the purpose of the One, which is to awaken all of existence into the realization that you and it and all is love. Thank you.